I hope that it is something that Parliament will be able to attend to and support. At the moment, we are having a budget of 24 billion shillings and from the GOK, and then another 54 billion shillings, totaling to about 78 billion. The money that we have, the 54 is from partners, World Bank, IMF, African Development Bank. So if we are going to raise 500 billion shillings between now and Vision 2030, we will need to partner with the private developers. The concern of Kenyans is understandable because they are wondering, are we selling a basic right or leaving it to the exploitation of commercial or private individuals or companies? The purchase agreement, water purchase agreement, will be able, in my view, working with the Office of the Attorney General, stakeholders, the public in public participation, be able to come up with the proper frameworks that will ensure that Kenyans are not exposed. Currently, when the government develops water, when the ministry engages the water development works agencies, then they are, of course, the water service providers. The regulation in place, the strategy and policy in place ensures that the element of cost is under control, regulated, and I know there are cases where it may not be properly regulated, and that is part of the reforms that we are working on. For me, it is possible. We must not see public-private partnerships as commercializing the water. We must see that as a need to develop the infrastructure, the way you would invest on a highway, on a road, and then engage the agency for purposes of then ensuring water is distributed to the consumer at a controlled and regulated space and pace. And I think I have answered that question. I am a practicing advocate. I have held my certificate since 1985. To date, I have a practicing certificate. Anybody who has taken clients' money may not be very lucky to have a practicing certificate for the period that I have had. The complaint you allude to occurred or was filed in 2012. The DCI has had that file, and it only becomes live when I'm about to go to elections, 2013, 2017, and 2022. You will find it being brought up even in the media, but finally the DPP had the opportunity with the DCI to look at the matter. It is 3 advocates plus myself, and the Office of the Director has directed that there is no criminal liability in the matter. I don't want to go into deeper details, but any advocate who is handling an estate matter or estate funds has a duty and responsibility to file an statement of account in court. What the court or the complainant would do is to demand for an account, because we did account for all the monies that we received, and I do not owe, neither do my colleagues, the other 3 colleagues, including the late Munari. I believe that is the answer. We have not been prosecuted, we have not been charged, and I do not see any charge coming because it was pure malice or a party that did not want to pay fees. Let me remind you that an advocate has a lien over any money that they hold. They are entitled to charge their fees directly and render an account to the client. If a client is not satisfied, they can ask the court to look at the bill, do taxation, meaning the bill will be assessed by a deputy registrar on behalf of the parties, And if they need further recourse, the Law Society has a complaints commission. That matter has never gone to the complaints commission. I believe it was vendetta, if maybe not by the client, but advocates that felt maybe it was a good brief and they could take over from us. Let me go to the question of, I think you had another. You were asking in terms of public trust. I believe I will be able to hold the office with honor. I have not been taken to any court of law, and even assuming I was taken to a court of law, maybe there would be dishonor if I'm found guilty. Assault, allegations of assault in the 2017 elections, I want to say that that matter was also investigated. No return was made in terms of any charges. I have not been charged. There was an altercation. I do not recall. You would not say what happened was assault against the returning officer. We had a tussle. It's regrettable, I would say so, but we had a tussle. The background of that was an issue of accounting in terms of votes given wrongly, posted wrongly. We had a returning officer who did not want to answer. It did not need to end where it ended, and that is something I'm sure even myself, we regret. We could have solved it a little better and tidier. Gladys Shorey is asking me about recycling. How do we deal with sanitation? These are matters that, the ministry is involved with the development of water, resources, sanitation, and irrigation. In terms of sanitation, per year, we are funding all necessary projects to the tune of only about, including donor money, about 31 billion shillings. The money is not enough to do what we would want to do. This is an area that has recently, because of the need to improve the environment, has received a lot of interest, and I believe partners will come in to assist, while the government must also commit more funding, and Parliament is a key player in that. I think it is an area that we would work for. We do have a strategy in place and policy, so what is remaining is just to implement and move forward. I'm reminded that the president has said he would want to take up the cleaning of the Nairobi River in a very serious manner as soon as possible, as part of ensuring that our sanitation is sorted. Junet Mohammed, Mheshimiwa Junet Mohammed, you are asking whether, other than Kandara, I know any other part of the country. I think in the ministry, I do not need to know any part of the country to be able to implement the policies that the ministry has developed. We have policy in place, we have strategy, reforms are in place, we have both the statutory and regulatory mechanisms, and we have very serious technical support teams in the ministry where there may be deficit or need to add, to improve, to train further. We shall do so that the designs, a lot of designs, including national master policy. I just need to sit on my desk and be taken through the national water policy and the national master plan for water. And then, therefore, I'll be able to find your constituency where it is or any other.
But is it true that you don't know anywhere else apart from Kandara? I
would be happy to go. Of course,
that was his question.
Mr. Chairman, to answer the Honorable Junet, I have traveled in all the counties in this country, both at my own free time and also during the very extensive campaigns that we did, including Junet Mohammed. I'm sure he has traveled. Mheshimiwa, I'll be able to find my way around, definitely.
Thank you. We'll take the next batch. Hey, Junet says you have not answered his other question. Which? There?
If I'm allowed, Chairman, I would like to leave that question because the Honorable Judge is now serving as a Deputy CJ in the country. I had raised the matter before Justice and Legal Affairs Committee before she was vetted. She was vetted and went through the process of vetting. There is no need, if I'm allowed, by the owner of the question and the Speaker, Chair, sir, not to answer any further or deal with the matter.
Preclude us from discussing judges at that level without substantive motions. You're right.
Much obliged.
I'll take the next batch of 4. The Honorable Owen Baya, the Honorable, wow. The Honorable Murugara, the Honorable Amisi and Naisula. You will have this next round.
Can I start, Speaker? All right. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, and to Honorable Alicewahome, our nominee for water, sanitation, and irrigation. There is a clear relationship, or actually a correlation, between lack of water and poverty. In the Africa Water Vision by 2025, that is, Africa should at least have water by 2025 everywhere, potable water by 2025, which is just 3 years from now. If you look at that document, it examines this relationship very clearly and puts African states on their toes to ensure that water. Looking at Kenya the way it is, I think we are very far away from achieving that. My question to you, Honorable Alice, is as CS of Water and Sanitation and Irrigation, how will you reconfigure this country to achieve this vision by 2025? And what is it that you'd want Parliament to do so that you can achieve this vision, not only for the country but also for Africa? Secondly, if I put it within this supplementary, Mr. Speaker, there are places in this country, if they had water, they wouldn't be as poor as they are. The docket on irrigation is placed squarely into you. How will you bring all this together to ensure that irrigation plays a role, but also water is found at home so that we can curtail the poverty that we have in this country? I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Chair. To our nominee, our constitution, we heavily borrowed from advanced democracies, US, UK, Canada, some Scandinavian countries like Sweden. But the best practices are not borrowed. We see ministers in these countries, whenever they are faced with flaws or mistake, they resign. But in the history of our country, we've seen ministers saying that some of them that may be known to you, that they rather die than resign. We get a lot of challenges during our working, especially these high-profile positions. There is a lot of pressure, and somebody accused you of being temperamental. Are we going to see a change that whenever there is a flaw to you, maybe in the course of your work, the pressure increases higher than normal, and your hand moves closer to somebody at a speed faster than lightning? Are you going to resign? as flimsy, as petty as the offense is, but are we going to see more responsible minister this time round?
Next, Morogara.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, this is to the nominee. Water is everything. In fact, they say water is life. And especially to poor rural folks in the poor areas of the country, the arid and semi-arid areas, which include my constituency, Tharaka Nithi County, the eastern region, Ukambani, the northeastern region and the northern parts of Kenya. We are now experiencing a drought. There is a hue and a cry in the country, not just on the part of food, but on the part of water, such that it has become a way of life that every 3-4 years there is a drought, and the cycle is repeated whereby we have no food, our livestock die, and the rivers that traverse those areas actually dry up. My question is, as a measure of extreme urgency, dharura, what plans do you have to ensure that this problem in the rural areas, in the dry areas, semi-arid areas of the country, this problem is ameliorated such that it is not going to be a cycle. It may be a one-off, but not a cycle that is repeated every 3-4 years to the detriment of the citizens who live in those areas.
Thank you, Chair. To Honorable Alice, and I would really advise and recommend that you really visit every part of this country when you're in that docket, so that you can actually feel the whole issue of water and how some parts of this country, people are really suffering. And so I do empathize with Kenyans in various parts of the country that have not had a drop of rain for 2 years now, and there has been no water for domestic and animal use. The case of human suffering is in the increase, while loss of livelihood continue to characterize life in the arid and semi-arid areas. And this is a matter of now, urgent. What urgent interventions and reforms will you put in place as a cushion to the devastating drought situation to see to it that households and school-going children have water?
Excellent. Next. Who was the... Oh, we've done the 4. Yes, Alice? You can answer those 4. Then we take another batch.
The first question was regarding my temperament, whether I will resign, or maybe he means whether I will fight with people I'm not happy with in terms of the way they are working. I'm not exactly a young person. I have the advantage of working now maybe for the last 40 years, and I do not recall any other incidents. You will also maybe want to know, and I want to put it on record, that I have been a politician for 20 years. Although I have served 2 terms and this now 3rd term, and I have not been involved in any other fight, altercation, except this that you seem to pick, honorable members. And I'm sure there are cases that can be very bad. I do not think I am a violent person. I am able to manage my tempers.
Honorable Chairperson,
Honorable Chair, I'm able to manage my tempers.
Alice.
Yes.
The David speak.
I have a slight interjection just to my colleagues, and I'm requesting the help of the Chairperson that we do. It would be nice not to have the questions being subjective because when the question is asked in a manner that is subjective and amounts to casting aspersions and passing judgment without giving the candidate an opportunity to elaborate, then it doesn't look good. I think you can phrase your question, Honorable Amisi, to say, could you elaborate on the following incidences with a view of assuring the panel that you have the requisite integrity standards? That's a better way of asking. And I know this because I haven't seen that line of questioning with any of the other candidates.
Chair, maybe to make it even clearer.
I'm not opening any debate.
I believe I have
carry on.
answered. With your permission, Chair, I was going to move to the question of Honorable Murugara. I said I am able to manage my temper. Honorable Murugara wants to know. I'll come to your question, Honorable Baya. Honorable Murugara is asking a question related to climate change. The question of climate change is a big subject, locally and internationally. It is true we have water, seasons of water, periods of a lot of rainwater, and the next time, maybe after 5 years, drought, serious drought or moderate drought. Indeed, when I was going through notes and seeking information in this area, I was made to understand that every 30 years or so, we normally get very severe drought, then followed by El Nino type of floods. It means we have not been able to learn properly. We have not put in place measures before that will deal with the water harvesting question. I have gone through the documents. We do have now Irrigation Act. We have water conservation regulations, and regulatory mechanisms are in place. There is a lot of effort and research that has been put in place on how we can conserve rainwater, including coming up with, I think they call them dry valley dams, which means they will draw water from the rains. And indeed, when you walk, for example, when you go to water from Makueni, going those two valleys there, you can see big valleys that would be able to hold a lot of water. We have seen serious devastating floods in most of the eastern provinces, regions, the counties like the ones Mheshimiwa Resuda is referring to, her county, but that water after 3 months is not there. The ministry intends to partner with Parliament, provide funding with other partners, including private partners. I will go back to that question. Dams is a big solution. Development of dams, infrastructure is a big solution to the question of water, because dams can be able to hold rainwater, water flows from floods, and I have looked and seen that we have a long list of dams that are either 50% complete. A few have run into problems because of either the contractors have run into serious financial issues, but majority of dams are kind of halfway. I'm told that we need this, the whole of this, the master plans, the research, the designs are there. I'm told what we need is money. Between now and 2030, we need to raise 1.8 trillion shillings for both water resources development and sanitation by 2030. If we did that, we will possibly deal with 3/4 of our problems. So yes, I'm sure I'll be coming to the honorable members to be able to discuss how we can partner in the area of looking for more money. Honorable Baya is asking how, the question of hunger, poverty is related to no water, no agriculture, no growing food, no production. I agree with you. The docket of irrigation has received serious attention. I can assure you that. and I think sometimes there is a lot of politics around irrigation. If you look at the irrigation schemes that are there, and I'm sure your region is one of those. The Gurana scheme, irrigation scheme, is about 95%. 5,000 acres of irrigation is now more or less complete, remaining another 5,000. The total is 10,000. And you remember the beginning was really visited with a lot of politics, but now it's underway to completion. So I want to think that for food security, to be able to be water secure, have food security, we need to irrigate. Again, we need to irrigate about 3.5 million acres. Currently, we have covered only about 800,000 acres, slightly less than 800,000 acres. So yes, by the time we reach 3.5 million acres, I think we shall be stable. But by 2030, the target, the question you asked me, by 2030, we are required to raise enough money to be able to irrigate about 1.2 million acres, between 1 million, 1.3 acres. That way we will be able to possibly talk about food security. Thank you. The Suda visit, I should make sure I visit the entire country. That's a good invitation. How can I resist that one?
Thank you, Chair.
I'll join you in that.
Chair, through you.
So the drought question, school-going children, you asked me about.
Yes, thank you. And I believe the nominee touched on the long-term interventions, yes, as she was answering Honorable Murugara. But I need immediate, urgent, now.
The boreholes, the small ponds, the smaller dams, other than the mega dams, collecting rainwater, ensuring that we are able to, some areas in fact, we even use dozer system, which is a very short-term and expensive mechanism. But boreholes, water harvesting, I have seen a lot of urgent, rapid response mechanisms or efforts by the ministry, and I'm sure as soon as I get office, with your approval, I'll be able to look at what is the immediate that we can do so that children are not running without water, but also that they can harvest water from schools where the ministry, with the help of agencies, they are delivering and distributing water tanks for purposes of storage. So yes, we do need a quick intervention water storage. Yes. I think I've answered all the questions.
Next batch.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, all of us, we understand that Kenya is a water scarce country, and right now we're experiencing a lot of scarcity in terms of water, and the reason is being climate change, global warming, deforestation, and also destroying of our water towers. Recently, I've seen some leaders saying that they will allow some people to do cultivation or other farming in Mau Forest. So I'm asking our nominee, what is your take in terms of safeguarding our water towers or other water catchment areas to ensure that we have adequate rainfall? The other issue to the nominee is about what is your plan in terms of adequate supply of renewable fresh water for all Kenyans? I thank you.
Next.
Thank you, Chair. Honorable Alice, my question, I really want you to be very specific. We are facing the worst drought in a decade. Currently, schools are being closed because there is not even water to cook food for the pupils or the students. And the rains maybe is unforeseen. The short rains might fail. So what we are asking is, as a stopgap of immediate attention, what is the ministry doing? We know you have not sat on that seat yet, but you should be able to get the information and give us feedback to that effect. On the same, your predecessor was also a lady. She was not seeing eye to eye with members of parliament. And yet water is life, and water is life. We represent the people. We are actually the actual representatives of the people of Kenya. So how are you likely now to work with Parliament and members of Parliament? Thank you, Chair.
Singh.
Thank you, Speaker and Chair of this committee. Number one, Speaker, is I didn't feel that the nominee answered the question by Honorable Ichung'wah properly. That was also my question in terms of water purchase agreement with the president. As of now, it's a policy. Maybe the nominee has not maybe acquainted herself with that policy and how it's going to happen. Maybe she would have said like that. It's a very fundamental policy, Speaker. I didn't get that very well from the nominee. But my question is, Chair, water is a default function. I want to hear from the nominee. What is it still doing, that function of water in national government? Is it that the county government cannot do those mega dams, or is it that we cannot be able to give them the money? What is it that is amiss in our structure of devolved functions, Honorable Speaker, that national government is still insisting that, okay, maybe you people are small brothers, you cannot be able to do these mega projects we can be able to do as government? What is it that is missing? Finally, Speaker.
One question.
Finally, Speaker. Yes. It's not a question, but it's maybe a reminder that the nominee, if approved by this House, I want her to pay attention on the mega stall projects, Honorable Chair, particularly in West Pokot. There is one dam in history of Pokot Nation, one, Honorable Speaker, that has ever been done since God created the world. It's called Murun. You know that, Speaker. You know that's your home. We passed there. One since God created the world. It's about 60% complete. I hope the nominee, if she gets this one, takes that as number one, because that's the only one, Chair, since God created the world. There's no other dam that has been done in West Pokot. Thank you, Chair. You see, it's a reminder only. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Speaker, I want to ask the nominee for water. We have a river which comes from Mount Kenya, going through Meru, going to Tharaka, and it is a major source of water for Mount Kenya East. And Mr. Speaker, through you, I would want to ask if the nominee goes through, because there are people who are irrigating with that water, and it's not just in Meru, in all the rivers in the country. They're doing hydroelectric plants, irrigating and everything, and people downstream cannot get the water. Mr. Speaker, I would want to ask the nominee, once she gets into office, if the House approves, what is she going to do with those areas? Because Meru is not known to be arid or semi-arid, but right now people are dying in Meru. Mr. Speaker, again, we hear about dams in each and every county. For the last 10 years, Mount Kenya East, we have talked about a dam, Kianjuri Dam, which was supposed to be done in Mount Kenya, which would go to Meru County together with the Tharaka-Nithi County. Mr. Speaker, we hear there are dams everywhere, but we are wondering, is the Tharaka-Nithi and Meru not in Kenya, that we do not get those dams? And we hear, the other day we had in Kirinyaga 20 billion, we hear Aror and Kimwarer 50-60 billion. Now we are wondering, where do we stand? So we would want to ask our nominee that if you are nominated to that office, you do a fair distribution of dams in all over the country and not just in a few areas.
Thank you. Answer, as you do so, I don't want us to repeat ourselves. The Honorable Posing asked you Ichungwa's question, and in my estimation, you had adequately answered it. You said you'll have public participation, you will have a look at each case in its own merit, and you'll consult the Attorney General to come up with proper, acceptable legal documents for the water purchase agreements. So you don't need to repeat it so that you answer other questions. You can answer him on Murunyi Dam and others.
Kopsing, and maybe I could then start with that so that I finish. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, even Chairman, for helping me out on that one. Water is devolved. That is your statement. What the national government is doing is water resource development infrastructure and managing that infrastructure so that by the time the counties are given water, then they are able themselves to distribute. They still have a big role. I guess it is not possible for the national government to deliver on delivery of water access to water to everybody without involving of the counties. But I'm sure you also agree the infrastructure, the management and development of that infrastructure is still a role of the national government. But it also does not stop the counties from coming up with their own irrigation and water projects. So I think I have answered that. If you look at the Constitution, it is not, there is nowhere it is stated that the national government will not work and develop the infrastructure. The dam you are talking about is 60%. Mheshimiwa, it's not just this particular dam that it is incomplete. There are very many dams. I've looked at the documents, but it is possible that we have maybe more than 40 dams or thereabout that are incomplete. Some work is going on. Others are waiting for release of funds. You know where the country is at the moment. You know where this government found the economy, and without passing any blame or ducking the question in any event, is that I said we need 500 billion shillings to be able to be water secure. And that's why it is important that the country understands that private and public partnerships are not a way of commercializing or selling water. You know, of course, water is a fundamental human right. It's a basic right secured under Article 43. And therefore, if we do not also provide, then it means the responsibility by the national government is not yet discharged. So I want to assure you that we will look at this dam, if I'm approved, not just this dam or incomplete projects. The president has pronounced himself very clearly that he would want to move from the projects that are ongoing first to be able to complete those, allow funding of those before we can start as a government on new projects. So Mheshimiwa Honorable Daiwu may be one of the people who will be waiting so that we can first complete the incomplete projects. But I believe every county needs to be able to get these services. Honorable Mishi, it is true, yes, we are a water scarce country because of climate change, because of course of poor management of our water resources, the catchment areas, the water towers. Parliament, the Ministry of Environment, Ministry of Water, all partners, stakeholders need to work together to restore the water towers, the catchment areas, and it is not possible to say that the minister will do that alone, including the fact that if there are people irrigating along rivers, you did not say which river, but maybe you can pass that over to me, yes. But I think the Ministry of Environment has a bigger role in this, but also the public has even a bigger responsibility not to destroy. We must work on conservation rather than destruction, and therefore those irrigating along the rivers, I think awareness creation also by members of parliament is important. Adequate renewable waters. I suppose in terms of conservation, restoring waters, maybe water wastage, of course, desalination, all these are methods of coming up with innovative ways of having more water. And I think I have seen policy documents and strategy documents. Indeed, there is a lot of reforms in this ministry. The documents are complete. What is remaining is implementation. Honorable Brasso, I will take the speaker's, the chairman's advice that I may have addressed this question, because I said there are stopgap measures like delivering storage tanks, quick boreholes, small domestic ponds or community ponds will be able to answer some of those questions. And they are under the rapid response programs. And there are those particular programs that are funded to respond to the situation as it is. I believe, Chairman, I was told about predecessor Sisri Karaoke. How will I work or partner with members of parliament? Will I be accessible? Yes, I will be accessible. I'm a member of parliament. I believe I may have a better understanding of the demands and the pressure on members of parliament. I may not have an answer for you even when you visit, but I may be able to hear you. Thank you.
We take the last batch, Ferdinand Emase Mule. And, sorry, you are slightly behind me. Yes, in fact, let me start with you. Coach Ferdinand Emase Mule.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mine is slightly different. The plan, there's a plan to irrigate 1 million acres of land by the Kenya Kwanza administration, and looking at there are dams that were somehow midway stopped from construction. I think because of, in my view, toxic politics of that time, Kimorer, Aror, Bosto, Londiani, Korusoin, amongst the few. Do you have plans to restart the dams again? And if yes, will we still have value for money, considering that some of these financiers have continued to pile interest on the loans within the time that they had been stopped? Thank you.
Ferdinand.
Mr. Chairman, I think I want to ask analysts a very controversial issue. This is where we went wrong. Irrigation is supposed to be in agriculture. Somehow it was moved to water and the blue economy. We have projects like Kalana Kulalu, which actually is irrigation for the farms there. But somehow irrigation and how to move to water. As far as I'm concerned, irrigation is supposed to irrigate crops in agriculture. Don't you think that we should be able to move the irrigation from yourself so that you can concentrate on water other than irrigating the farms?
Mary.
Thank you, Chairman. Sorry. My question is on ongoing projects. Madam Nominee, water scarcity cuts across. It affects majority of the population, not only in the arid and semi-arid, but even in wet areas like Western Kenya, Busia, where I come from. There is water, yes, but we do not have deliberate structures to harvest that water. So it's not surprising to meet school children with the jerry cans going to look for water to be able to to survive in those schools. So my question is, what will be your priorities? Because government has initiated a number of water projects across the country, including Busia County. So how are you going to prioritize, noting that noting the economic situation, the fact that we are cutting down on most of the budgets across the sectors? So what are you going to prioritize? Thank you.
Thank you, Speaker. My question goes to the nominee, and I will, Speaker, encourage you, please allow us to frame the question which was asked by Honorable Ichung'wah, because I find it very important for simple reason, Mr. Speaker. We are putting about a budget of about 500 billion shillings on the PPP. And I didn't hear the nominee come out very clearly on the clear pillars. And probably for the doubt of Kenyans, what are we talking about? We are talking about 5 pillars. I can name them very quickly. The water scaling, whereby we are looking at the quality, quantity, rate, and the rate of adjustment. The sale capital, the purchase tripartite agreements, the terms of agreement, and the water usage in that particular project. Then my question comes, Mr. Speaker, as a nominee to this ministry with that fundamental huge mandate being given to her, first and foremost, we need to understand, with the current economic situation in the country, will the ordinary Kenyan be able to raise funds for the purchase agreement we are talking about? I want to give an example. In Matungulu, we have the second highest ball in the entire country, producing 78,000 cubic liters of water per hour. What does that translate? It translates, you need an investor, and the common mwananchi at the grassroots will be able to pay back the investor who has distributed the water, who has made sure that the quality of water is clean, and made sure that there is a drop of water at every homestead. Mr. Speaker, and the nominee, Alicewahome, at the current situation of economics of scale in this country, does the common mwananchi be in position to procure some of these simple water agreement we are looking at? And I think you should be bold enough to advise the government on the best model, and if the model cannot work, will you be in a position to stand and tell the president, please, Mr. President, you promised the hustlers water, give them water without metering? Thank you.
Yes, Alice.
We could start from that question from Honorable Mule. I think I would encourage members that we don't operate from fears. You have very well articulated the fact that there will be the water scaling, the quality, the assurance, the terms of sale of that water, the costing, the tariffs. May I advise just at this stage that there will be no interface between the consumer, that is the beneficiary of the water, and the developer, because that is not possible. You can see that would not be an equal relationship. There are water providers that will be dealing with the consumer, the mwananchi. The developer will be dealing with the government at government level and the development agency level. That is, for example, at the water, NIB or NIA now, at that level, the agreements will be exchanged, monies provided for, develop the water resource, hand over to the agency. Then the agency will be able to know, because we have water companies that even today, water is really actually a trading commodity. The water you are using in your house, even in this parliament, is for sale. We buy water. What is important is how how the instruments for control and regulation of tariffs is done. And if there are challenges there, it is an area that Parliament through delegated registration committee will be able to address. If tariffs are not reasonable, Parliament would have a role. And I think so far, I've looked at some of the studies and documentation with the ministry. Every shilling you invest in water brings 4 shillings, 4 times. Indeed, in our country, it could be up to 10 shillings. So I think there is room for control and standardization. And therefore, I can assure you, I think we have a role there. There is no need of fears. I do not see a situation where, and if you listen to the president himself, he said that the agreements will be first proposed by the relevant by Treasury and then come to the ministry, and I think it will obviously be a joint effort. We will look at those documents together. There will be public participation. The public will be able to say, even today, you know, they are able to be consulted, and there are bad practices, and unfortunately, actually, there is also a lot of theft. Chairman, there is a lot of theft of water. Some of the challenges is that non-revenue water, that is now about 40% of all the water that we develop and we have. So if we lose 40% to theft and leakages, that's some of the things that we are supposed to be doing so that we can increase our volumes or our water resource. Miriam Massa is talking about stored projects. I did say earlier there are many stored projects. There are several which are ongoing, complete and incomplete, and the ministry is working hard. I have looked at their portfolio and I think they are working hard. The impediment is actually funding, and that's why if we wait to raise money from our revenue, you can be sure, like